There we go.
Hello, hello.
Yo,
Darion?
What's up, guys?
What's up,
Can't
y'all?
see you.
Not much. I'm actually in the car on the way home from rehearsal.
The grind does not stop.
It don't stop, man. It really don't.
Hey, we're live, and I haven't seen. Well, I see one reaction. All right, so yeah, we wanted to get on here real quick and just, probably waiting on a few people to log in, but just get a chance to get everybody together and talk a little bit about the whole process of 7VerseNine coming together.
yeah.
So if you could just go one by one, introduce yourself, where you're located, what local church you're a part of, and then we'll go from there.
Sure, I can start. My name is Jorel Corpus, and I'm here in LA. I go to Every Nation City Church here in LA.
Yes, sir. Chris, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Hey, Chris Davis from Midland, Texas. I'm on staff at Six Cities Community Church here in Midland. I helped co-produce the album, start to finish, Justin. That's my commitment. That's my contribution.
Chris, we had somebody jump on here. Jessica Perez. She said, "What's up?"
Hey, Jess.
So it looks like folks are slowly starting to log in.
How do you see the live thing?
Okay, so I'm broadcasting through a app called Ecamm. So it's actually aggregating the live cast through Skype. So it's kind of like two things happening at one time.
And it's on YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. If you want to pull it up, if you want to pull it up on another device and watch the actual live stream, you can.
I'm on YouTube right now. I don't see a.
You don't see the link?
I don't. I'm on like the Every Nation's page, Every Nation music page.
Okay. Anybody else out there having problems before we move on? I see folks commenting and reacting. Can you all see us?
I got it pulled up now. I can see.
Might be using a.
I can
Maybe it doesn't work on Safari.
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Yeah,
All
if
right,
you go
well,
to YouTube channel, you just click the. It
yes,
says live.
Darby's on here from Grace Cove. He said I can see everyone except the Bishop of Bass.
Bishop of Bass is clowning in the car right now.
Bishop.
I'm on my way home, guys. I'm on my way. I'm almost there.
Yeah.
Everybody joined in just to see him. Darion, don't you know?
That's right.
Nah,
Everybody's
man.
trying.
No one joined in to see me. No one joined in to see me.
No, man. Everybody's on here to know
Who cares about us?
who snapped on bass.
It was Justin's overdubs.
Man, whatever. Come on, please. Oh gosh, we got hey, Pastor Raymond from South Africa. He's joining at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. Wow. Thank you for joining us. That's awesome. All right, so let's talk a little bit, Chris. Just get your thoughts on like just the pre-production process heading into the production process actually at Go. This has been months and months in the making. It's almost kind of weird, like having the project out in the wild right now, knowing all the work that went into it beforehand. So, why don't you talk a little bit about that from your point of view?
So Justin and I first had a conversation around this time last year. It was around beginning of November, end of October.
Yep.
Dreaming about what it would be like to be able to capture and record the World Conference. And really, my thought and his thought was just, what Every Nation music has that's unique is the collaboration of worship leaders from all around the world not only worship leaders but worship songwriters. And so that's an amazing thing to have. That's unique that not everybody has. But it's also a very hard thing to capture. Like you don't just not able to just go into a recording studio and record with everybody because they're all around the world, literally.
Right.
So what better place than the World Conference than to be able to record and capture and release something that's unique to who we are. And so we just started dreaming about what that'd be like, and that was about a year ago. And so really, man, it started early on, November, December, planning, charting out the course for what the album was going to be like, what it was going to feel like. Mm-hmm. Some of the things that we wrote down at the time were, we wanted it to be unique but familiar, something that sounded different but wasn't so far off the map that it was like, what is that? We wanted it to be compelling and powerful. We wanted it to be true to who we are as Every Nation Music. And so those were some of the things that we wrote down and we just really strove toward. And then February, we met in Nashville and started doing some pre-production on the songs that we felt like would be best to record. Well, really, even it wasn't just best to record at that time. It was really what songs would be best for the conference in that environment. And Justin, you can comment more to that.
Yeah, that was one of the most difficult things to manage, to be honest. It was because this is a live worship moment. So this isn't necessarily like a traditional live recording where you bring people together with the sole purpose of capturing as much as possible and everybody's in on it. So, you've prepped the audience and you've kind of gone through all the cues of, grabbing crowd responses and doing all these different things that a lot of other live recording artists do. But we were really trying to maintain the integrity of the actual worship experience as best we could. That was really difficult. Like when I look back on it now, I'm like, there were definitely a few moments where I was like, oh, that was a little awkward. Yeah. Would have done that a little bit better in terms of it being more seamless and the experience being more rich. But I think with that said, I think we managed the tension fairly well for a first attempt. I think there were definitely some powerful moments that you're actually hearing on the project like that. Those weren't manufactured. They actually came from, the crowd responses and kind of moments of exhortation and praise. And so, so that was the thing that was really cool, is because we got a chance to experience those moments in the conference. And then once we got back to it in the studio and started to listen through to the actual capture, we're like, wow, like that was a powerful moment. And that wasn't scripted, like that happened. So like one that comes to mind is All I'm After. Like that was a powerful moment. Like we didn't know that Neil would go back into that song. Actually, in the flow of what actually happened in the conference, someone had planned to come up and exhort during that time, but something happened in that moment in worship that allowed for it to be extended. And then the exhortation happened after the fact, but I felt like that's how God wanted it to happen, because I can't imagine it happening any other way. So just some things like that, if I had some thoughts on it.
And I think too, like, going back to February, the songs, there were some songs that just left out that we knew, like, okay, these songs are favorites in some of the Every Nation churches, and we know these are going to be done at the conference. There were other newer ones that we were kind of like, okay, you think this is going to work? There was a big process of figuring out which songs were going to be at the conference. But, in February when we met, we began to do pre-production. Part of our goal was that because the band was coming in from all around the world, we wanted to make sure that we weren't trying to iron out parts. We weren't trying to figure out people were going to be singing or playing. So we hit that, and at least as far as production parts, those to be set and in place, and everyone to know what they're supposed to be doing, so that at the conference we could put things together rather than try to figure out what the parts are. And so February, that 1 week, our goal was to get through every song, every drum part, every guitar part, every bass part, everything. We did not get through every song.
No, we did not. No.
We had to do a lot remotely after that, but that was a fun week and helped launch the pre-production process, and then communicating with the band on what parts needed to be where and all that. And so then we got to the place, man. That's kind of the process. That's the quick Reader's Digest version of the process leading up to the conference, which was really about 9 months in the making.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we can comment later, especially as we get questions and stuff about the process after the conference. But prior to the conference, that was a lot of work.
Yeah. Darion, did you get back on? You back on here?
I see he's muted.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, man, so, Darion, why don't you talk a little bit about what it was like leading the band, man? I mean, this was a major undertaking. Give some thoughts.
Yeah, so honestly, like, I've never had an experience like that. You know, I think I didn't know anyone in the band except Caleb when we first got there. So this is my first time meeting everybody. And like Chris said, you know, like, just trying to get through everything was like really the main goal.
Yeah.
But like, it came together well. Like, everyone could play, and it felt like a family too. So that was the biggest part. It's like, it wasn't just like, hey, do this, do that, do that. It was more so like a family coming together. You know, distant cousins that we never met, but you know, we all know each other. It kind of felt like we knew each other when we got there. So that was the biggest thing. It's really fun to just be able to work with people from all over the world and like actually make relationships. And I'm still in touch with all these people too, you know, so it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a huge part of all this. I mean, for those of you who may just be becoming familiar with Every Nation music or kind of following what we've been doing over the last several years, I mean, at the foundational level of what we're building here is community, is relationships. You know, you know, none of the folks who participate in this community are celebrities. You know, in the sense of like, this is what they do for a living. I mean, these are people who serve in the local church. You know, have a heart for God's mission. You know, contribute just with a sense of sincerity and passion for that cause, and you know, I think that's something that comes through in the music. That's something that comes through in the things that we create, is that sense of spiritual family, that sense of commitment to mission, and I hope my hope and my prayer is that we continue to maintain that, and that more of you out there will continue to not just support but also become a part of that community. You know, for those of you who are you know, songwriting or worship leading or musicians, we really have a global vision to see you guys engaged in your regions and expand these efforts, you know, throughout all of our churches and even beyond that. So, you know, we've got churches, Every Nation has churches in over 80 nations, and it's amazing to see the diversity that is on the stage at the Go Conference. But you know, I think about it, I'm like, there's more, you know, there's more people who want to be connected. And so, which actually kind of brings me to Jorel. So I'll set you up, Jorel. So I was familiar with the church in LA and some of the leaders there. I actually didn't know Jorel was there. Caleb, who was the guitarist and one of the featured vocalists on the project, went to a conference in LA and just so happened to be interning in the Every Nation office during the time. So he came back and was like, hey, have you had a chance to connect with this guy Jorel in LA? And I'm like, I've never even heard of him or met him before. So we exchanged details and reached out to him, and come to find out, man, we've got this like super duper talented mix engineer, just kind of like the hidden gem in our midst, you know. And I'm like, wow, what a opportunity to kind of cap this project from start to finish, not just on the music side, I mean, production side, but on the mixing side as well. So Jorel, you want to talk a little bit about how that connection was made, what it was like for you in the mix process.
Yeah, sure. Actually, before I start talking about all of that, I had a little question about the production side. I was wondering, what was the process of choosing the worship leaders who eventually ended up singing on the album? Like, how did you choose because every nation has had like releases before,
Yeah.
and like I feel like this is a kind of like not really a new bunch of roster of singers, but like they feel all new and young.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah.
not sure if that was like something that you guys took into consideration.
Yeah. I mean, some of it was, you know, a lot of the people who served on the team for Go Conference have served in the past. Tammy has participated in quite a few campus conferences. The same thing goes for Helena and Pierre, some of the conferences that we've had in South Africa. So really, it's when you look at the team, it's kind of a mix of people who've served in their regions over the years, but who have not always had that opportunity to serve at Go Conference. And so what we tried to do is keep the pool pretty tight on people who we knew had been a part of previous conferences and those kind of experiences, and to just pull them in and so that we had the most diverse, not just in terms of where they're coming from, but also multi-generationally. So you got like, and Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think Brooklyn's like what, 19 or 20 or
she's 19. She turned 19 at the conference.
Right, she turned 19 at the conference. Caleb was 18 at the no.
He's older than her. He's 19.
Yeah, but Caleb had just turned 19 before the conference. So, you got like, 18 just turning 19-year-olds, and you got, people up into their 30s. And I just think that again is and 40, yeah, that's right.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not gonna put anybody out there on their age, but we'll just say it was a good cross section of just different demographics, different people from different places who all have contributed in other ways at conferences. So we tried to keep that mix in that way.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So I heard so to answer your question, I knew that the conference was happening. I knew that the Go conference was happening. Yeah. And I was, I kind of thought that they're probably going to make an album out of this or something. And like mixing is my craft, like music production is my craft. Yeah. So I was like, I gotta get on that, dude. Like I've been part of Every Nation since 2007. Yeah. I'm not skipping this opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, like I've been like sort of like really dying to work on it, to work on stuff from ever since Every Nation music started. To be honest, I hit up the music director of the first album in 2014, Otto Price. I hit him up and I was like, hey, look, I want to work on this. I've been part of Every Nation. I want to work on this album. I don't know what you need. If you need me to tune vocals or something, like I'll do it. And then I didn't get on it, but it's okay, And then time passed, and then I was like, there's a world conference. It's happening. I'm pretty sure they're gonna make an album. I'm gonna hit up whoever I know. So I asked Dave Polis, our pastor, hey, who's the who's the leader of Every Nation music now? And they said you, Justin. So I was like, I'm gonna hit up that dude and introduce myself and be like, hey, look, this is me. This is my resume, etc., etc. And then I asked Caleb I asked Caleb or something. Oh wait, actually, I do remember now. Caleb posted like an Instagram story. And then something about prepping for the conference or something.
Gotcha.
And then I sent him a message like, "Who's mixing that?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, actually, bro, etc., etc." So then we exchanged details, and then I got an email, and I was so stoked. I'm like, I'm gonna nail this project. I don't care. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So when I finally got the confirmation call, and you confirmed that I was working on it, I'm like, yes. Thank you, Jesus. I'm not gonna fail you. You know what I mean? Like,
God.
So like I was super excited because like it's part of me. Like I've been part of Every Nation since 2007. And it's a new album, and it's like I'm working in the capacity of exactly what I do. So it was
awesome.
such a great opportunity for me to be able to work on it.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if that answered everything, but that's as far as I can remember from the question.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm looking over here at the comments. I think we got a few questions coming in. So Christian asks, how do you maintain unity in such a large production, man? Yeah. So the good news is we were working with a very mature group of people, specifically spiritually mature, which means that they understand the gravity and the weight of stepping into an environment to minister. And that ministry not being about them or their egos or the platform, but more so just the service to people. One of the things that God laid on my heart, which I actually shared to the group when we gathered for rehearsals, was that, in this moment of the conference, a lot of the things that we enjoy as necessities, a lot of people will come and experience as luxuries. And that was something that God really laid on my heart, because I think that, especially in Western culture where we have, an abundance of resources, where you've got, everybody's church has stems and this and that and all kinds of instruments and gear and all the things. But, in some of my travels, and even listening to some of our other senior leaders and some of their travels, or missionaries for that matter, and you think about, these some people traveling from creative access nations where they don't even have, they might have a projector. And in some cases, they can't even sing loudly or at all, because for threat of being found out, by the authorities, and potentially being shut down or put in prison. So just trying to come in with that sensitivity and that mindfulness that this is unto God, this is a service to His people, that these people are traveling long distances, and in some cases through dangerous, situations, to come and to be together, to experience spiritual family, to worship. And so, though I'm glad we captured the album, I'm more glad that we were able to minister and to serve them, and for them to remember that experience in such a way that they would even go out and get the project to say, that moment was so impactful, I want to live it again. I think that to kind of sum it up from my perspective, that was kind of how we kept unity. And then obviously there's communication and stuff that happens. And Chris did a great job of making sure that some of the logistics on the production side, and communicating with band and other pieces on the production side. So Chris, you could probably speak to that, because you handled the bulk of that.
Yeah, a big part of that was just making sure we had a plan going in. So everybody was on the plan even before we hit the ground and understood the plan. And so when we were putting it together at the conference, it was really just little details and things here and there, which Darion was handling a lot of those. I was rehearsing the band as well, but it was, and I will say to Justin's point, it's amazing when you're able to work with highly skilled, very humble people.
Absolutely.
Of which Darion Duncan, I know he's getting a lot of praise for his bass parts, and rightfully so. But more than that, he's a super humble guy, and it's not a false humility. I know he's shaking his head, but I don't even know if God can see Darion on the YouTube. But just really his humility and deference to be able to work with as a producer, and him. A lot of these songs were, his arrangements, or at least started out as his arrangements.
Yeah.
And so, So it was just awesome to be able to work with him and then with the whole team that was just super like chill and took direction when really they could have probably done other things, that were better or whatever. But that unity was there because everyone had a heart of humility. And so that was really strong and powerful. And I think the communication ahead of time really helped with that. I think that on the production side, as far as what mics we're using and all that kind of stuff, I mean, really, the guys with Every Nation, I mean, all the guys putting it on, Carlos and all those guys, like, they are playing down to the detail. And so I was just trying to keep up with them on my spreadsheets and my communication to the production crew because they were really on the ball. So that was, that spreadsheet was pretty detailed down to input lists and mic choices and mic preferences and second mic options and all that on a technical production side, if that's what you're asking, Christian. So
yeah, did you see that there was another question he had about was the main role of the choir to support or to be featured, and he talked about he's asking about mic techniques. So Chris, do you want to kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so on the mics, we used AKG 414s. We had 4 of them spec'd, but then really with the size of the choir, we ended up using 3. Justin, how far do we want to go into the rabbit hole of what we actually did with these mics?
Man, so here's the thing, Christian, like when you're in an environment like that, you're dealing with tons of bleed. Tons. And you're trying to
side fills were pointed straight
correct
at the mics.
So we had a few problems, to say the least. So it was great to have the energy of the choir. Obviously there were moments where you could hear them and have more of an experience of them in the arrangement. But we did, coming out of it into post-production, we did have to make some decisions because it's just like, and some of this stuff based upon what was happening on the stage and how many open mics there were. Some of those things we couldn't use or had to overdub that's just a part of the process. And I had never had an experience miking a choir like that in that kind of environment. And so I don't know about you, Chris, but that was my first experience doing something like that. And so there were some things that, if I had to do it over again, I probably would make adjustments. But so in post production, you kind of find some of that stuff out once you listen back to the playback, and you're like, I don't know about that. I don't know about those. We gotta pull those back. So.
Yeah, those side fills were louder in the mics than the choir actually was. And so there's some of that. Just placement on the stage too. Probably if they were in the middle, it would have been better. But yeah, it goes to one of the other questions, what do you learn? And so all of these things are learning experiences.
Hey, I had a question. Should we rebroadcast from your eCam app so we can see Darion on the feed? Because I can't see him on the feed either.
Darion, you still there?
Yeah, he's there. I can see him.
Did you?
He's on Skype.
Okay, you're on, but I can't. Oh, there you go. There you go. Bam. There you go.
Now you see him.
Now you see him. Now we in there.
Awesome.
The Bishop of Bass has joined us face to face.
I was cool, just chilling.
My. All right. Yeah. So let's see. Do we have any other questions on here?
There's one that says, what's something about the recording a live album that a lot of people may not know? There's probably many things I could speak to that. I will say on this album specifically, one thing that most people may not know is that when we were recording this album, we were doing it for Dante, and we had major Dante clocking issues.
Oh, really?
All week long we were trying to solve. We'd get it going and then they pop back up. So There were literally pops and clicks in every single track on every single song.
Yeah.
Was that like a something wasn't set as a master clock kind of thing, or?
Dude, we went. I mean, I'm telling you, we went round and round with the production company. I mean, not in an adversarial way. Like, we were all trying to fix it.
Yeah.
And it was just, we could not. It was not. We had 5 different machines tracking. Some on BBS, some using RedNet, that RedNet PCIe card.
Yeah.
And man, we had different machines tracking from different cards, different ways. And then we'd unplug them. We tried everything. We could not get rid of the clocking issue. So we had pops and clicks in every track. And so this is not an endorsement place or anything, but Isotope RX7, baby.
Boy, telling you.
D-click on every track.
Man.
So what you may not know is that for every track I had to go in, run D-click on all of it. But then once you export it, it's out of place. So then I had to bring it all back up and phase align everything back up for every song.
God bless
you. So that's a little something that you didn't know about that album. But sometimes, one of the things that I learned through that was just I was sitting there live going, I don't know if this album is going to come out it can't go out like this.
Yeah.
So we're gonna and actually, props to Christian Martinez, who I was in a conversation with. He mentioned Isotope RX7. He's the one asking these questions. And he was at the conference and we were talking. I was like, yeah, man, I can't fix this clocking problem. We're working on it, trying to fix it, and we can't get it fixed. And so he mentioned that, and that was really saved. So maybe we should write Isotope a little letter, see if we can get some free.
I know people from Isotope, actually.
You should tell them that story.
Tell them they saved our lives.
Yeah. No, I'll tell them, because I literally just wrote them an email today.
Yeah, they saved this project, RX7 and the Lord.
Yeah. It's the Lord and then RX7.
Oh man.
Hey, so I just want to shout out Jorel again, man. For those of you out there who use output, plugins, my man.
I do.
My man did some work on Arcade, so just want to shout you out.
I just wrote a beat with Arcade the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you hear any of those Brazilian percussions there, that's me.
Dude,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I was playing percussion. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, man, he's a plug-in maker. He's the guy behind the curtain.
I don't make the plugins.
He just makes the sounds that go in the plugin.
I just give sounds or whatever.
Yeah.
Output is pretty great. Some of their staff were like classmates of mine, so that's how I know them. What was I gonna say? Oh, so I actually had a question for Darion. What was it like? So you did all the arrangements. What was it like? Because sometimes you have an arrangement and you have a certain preference for how a certain groove should happen or whatever, or how a certain harmonic part should happen. And was it followed 100% when they executed it in the live?
Yeah, so with the arrangements, I was trying to make sure that we kept it within what we already do as a movement. I didn't want to sound like anything else other than Every Nation. That was the main goal, is making sure that we stay true to who we are as a movement. As far as what we did live, we were pretty close. I didn't want to take away people's creative ability either. Everyone on the stage could play. And no one needs to be coached. So I wanted to make sure that we stay close to the arrangement, but personalities and creative ability shine through the parts and things like that. So that's kind of how the arrangements came together.
Yeah, cool. I think there was a question a while ago asking about like if you what people don't know about live albums. I think Chris and Justin already answered it. There's a lot of bleed, like for sure. And sometimes you have to. It's either you really place your mics properly, or you have a choice between like using the kind of mics that you don't think you'll be using. Like say for example, I wasn't part of the recording of this album. Like I mixed it, but I did some projects wherein we had to do some orchestra stuff with a live band kind of thing, and usually I would be like, oh, I wanna mic the whatever violin section with. I want to mic the violin section via like an overhead or something. But what I ended up doing was that I ended up placing like SM57s on each and every one of them, because I felt like if I place like an overhead small diaphragm condenser thing, then it would have so much bleed or whatever, versus like having like a dynamic mic shoved right in front of it kind of thing,
Yeah.
And then you just like you're hoping for some kind of like. I was hoping for some kind of like room feel with like the overhead mics that were far away or whatever, but it totally did not work. So I had to just kind of like do reverb or something, like you have to make so many decisions that you don't feel are gonna work, but ends up working,
Yeah, true. I saw this other comment from Raymond. He said the cool voice echoes on the start of Many Waters, and You Said It. Was that pre-recorded loop or a special effect that was live? Raymond, that was pre-recorded, and it just so happened that some of those we went back in on. So like I pre-recorded a vocoder that I played on at the top of You Said It. And then actually at Jorel's suggestion, I went back in. No, for real, because I think this really made that part pop. He had me go back in with vocal synth.
Vocal synth, yeah.
And I had vocal synth too, and I don't know why I didn't think to use it in the first place. There you go, Isotope again, getting lots of plugs right now. But yeah, so we went back in with that, and that really kind of brought out some of the nuance and articulation of it, so it just popped more. So that's what you're hearing at the top of You Said It. Christian,
back to the girls thing about mics too, like when recording a live album, especially with this one, our vision from the beginning was to have lots of crowd involvement. That's the whole point of a live album. Sometimes you listen to live albums and it's like you don't even hear the crowd.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our decisions, even in the type of arrangements and how we did certain things, were directly related to want to have a lot of crowd mics throughout the recording and have it really live and have energy. And so
I used everything, by the way.
Yeah.
I used everything.
Brian Ramsey, he's from Midland. He's here, part of our staff at Mid Cities. We used a lot of his mics for crowd mics. One of the unique things that we did, that I'm sure it's been done, but that I thought was cool, is we actually used a VR mic. Sennheiser, I forget the model number, but it's a VR mic with 4 heads on 4 capsules on one mic. It's kind of a 360 mic. Yeah. It sounded it gave a cool different texture besides just your normal room mics and stage crowd mics and all that kind of stuff. So
the next step, we should mix this in Atmos. I can use the VR mics and then swirl things around.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
On the 50th anniversary.
Yeah, when we're all in our 50s.
Yeah.
Right.
So Christian had another question. He said, any creative ideas you have in your back pocket that you're gonna try next live album? Man, I don't know. Chris, you got anything in your back pocket? I don't have anything in my back pocket.
Creative ideas in my back pocket.
My creative idea is to listen to the producers and do what they tell me to do.
It was so funny because I was talking through the kind of the mix with Jorel, and he just kept saying, "I'm just going to do whatever you tell me to do."
I mean,
and I was like, "Hey man, I appreciate
that's what
that."
mixing is, though.
Yeah,
that's what mixing is, though.
I get it. Oh, that's funny.
I mean, I don't know.
So Christian, I'm sorry to disappoint you, man. I don't think we got any back pocket situations right now. I think it's mostly just full steam ahead. We'll be back at it another 3 years from now, and we'll see. Now the other thing is, 3 years from now we'll be in Manila at one of the biggest venues.
Oh, that's right. That's my hometown.
At the MOA, so it's going to be at Mall of Asia. So it's going to be, close to 20,000 people. So
that's going to be fun.
Yeah, it should be awesome, and that's a whole different kind of bleed.
That's a whole different.
I know the suppliers in Manila, by the way.
Hey, we're gonna need to pull every plug. We need all the plugs. We need every plug.
Yeah. Christian just mentioned L Acoustics, that he's definitely right about that one.
Yeah.
I used that system in Taiwan. It's when I did an orchestral thing. It's pretty great.
Yeah. And that's more so on the isolation side.
It's the system. It's the sound system.
Oh, the sound system. Okay. That's awesome. And somebody said road in. Oh, that's Brian saying.
Oh, that's Brian. That was the VR mic. Yeah, Rode in TSM1. Yeah, that's what it was.
Man, and let me just say publicly, Brian, thank you so much. What you guys don't know is that Brian came through in the clutch. This man has like the mic locker, gear locker of life.
Oh, dang.
And we had no idea until Chris told us, and he just graciously donated so many different pieces of gear for us to make this happen. So Brian, thank you so much. It was incredible. We could not have done it without what you did for the conference, and even some of your insights and wisdom on the recording side as things unfolded, just kind of being behind the scenes and giving Chris some cues, and so incredibly helpful. So Brian, super shout out to him.
Yeah.
I had a question for Darion and the producers, actually. So when so before the conference actually happened, you guys had demo tracks, right? You guys kind of like mocked up the arrangement, mocked up how what's going to happen and whatever. How did you assign? I mean, this is an easy. This might be an easier answer than what I think it is. But I was going to ask something like, how did you choose on which parts were going to be assigned to real players versus like, oh, we're just going to keep this in the tracks or whatever, Like, how does that thing kind of work?
Chris, you can shoot that first.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, it's hard. I have to take it probably song by song. What we wanted to do is have as much of it played live as possible. I mean, we know the nature and landscape of worship music these days. There's a lot of tracks and everything that's played live. But we, guitars, we knew that we were going to have two guitar players on stage. So a lot of the songs that you hear where you hear two guitar parts, those were actually played live. In some tracks you hear 10 guitars. Now, obviously, only.
Wait, before that, did you guys use like amps or Kempers or Helix or something like that?
Yeah, all guitars were digital actually. One was Helix, one was Kemper,
Cool.
And then our dubs were done either through Kemper. Most of the dubs were all through Kempers.
Okay, cool. So go on.
The overloud slate stuff that they had. But yeah, so most of the guitar parts, the main guitar parts that you hear, were all, we wanted those to be played live and experienced live. Same way with our fourth part. There were some, I think that was a big challenge for us was keys, because not only did we have different players playing, but we also didn't have the same setups as what we had done in pre-production. And so one of our big questions was, okay, if this song was made using a contact library, Justin's got a huge contact library, thousands of dollars of sounds. Does Kurt or does TK have those same sounds, and can they deploy them in the same way? And so what we ended up doing is they ended up just getting as close as they could. And so in production, whenever I was putting together all of the pieces, I would bring in what we did pre-production and bring in what they played live. Some of which what they played live, I just used straight their live tracks. TK also sent me overdubs on everything that he had played through the conference. So I actually had 2 takes of TK. I had his live take, and then I had his what he overdubbed. And so some of the things where you hear TK's runs like those fast things that sweep across in hand, those I pulled from his dubs and just panned them and used them in that way. And so a lot of
the one that he told me to turn up.
Yes.
That needs to be featured. Can you turn it up a little bit?
Yeah. Those little runs he did was pretty sick. If you're watching TK, good job on all that stuff, man. TK's from South Africa, Joburg. He's the man. And so anyway, I mean, like our heart was to try to get as much of it played live as possible. Some of that is, most of it is in the final somewhere, but probably supplemented by other sounds that were done either pre or post production. I don't know if that. I've probably talked too long now. They don't have anything to say. Sorry.
Well, Christian had another question about arrangements too. He said, as far as arrangements go, how strict were the parts or cues? Was it more laid back or specific? Me and Chris talked through that quite a bit. I mean, what we tried to do was just, there were obviously some things that we felt like needed to be executed like a certain way in order for the song to have impact. So those things we tried to lock in on the pre-production, and also communicate, to the players like, hey, like this is the vibe, or this is what we need right here. Try to stick as close to that map as possible, or in terms of dynamic as possible. But at the same time, not being so hard where you're choking out the opportunity for somebody to give expression to the music in the moment, or even to kind of re-envision it after the fact when you're trying to do overdubs. It's like, there's still liberty that can be taken, which I think is important to the creative process overall. Like as a producer, you want people, especially musicians who are contributing, to feel like they actually contributed, like they actually had a chance to give expression to what they do in their craft, and not feel like they were just a robot spitting out notes, so I don't know if you want to add anything else to that, Chris. I just think that was the philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, our philosophy on really going up to it was pretty strict. Like even in rehearsals, Darion was probably like, dude, chill, man. But during rehearsal, when we got there, I was particularly with Alex, some parts, just like it needs to be like this, like play it like this, run it. And then as it got closer, really what we try to do is go, okay, now now you've got that, now just be free. And so and so it was not trying to be passive aggressive or anything, but just at the same time, wanting to make sure certain things, because
you want people to understand the arc kind of thing,
right.
You want people to understand how certain things hit, and then when they understand it, then they can improvise on their own kind of thing.
Right. And also knowing certain things with the end in mind, a real fast, even though a cool guitar line riff would be cool here, live, we also got to think about, okay, well, because now it's going to be all the crowd mics, and being able to kind of negotiate between those two things. So, but you spoke into this a lot too once it started.
Yeah, I was just saying, we want people to be able to lead songs, and so if the arrangements are just crazy, where it's just just going for it, every other line, most people won't be able to play in their church.
Yeah.
One of our goals. So like this, I just pulled up like the production plan that was created in December of 2018, one of the things that we were saying was technical but replicable. We wanted it to be cool and have some cool lines, but cool lines in such a way that other people could play them, that they're not out of the reach of a typical worship team. So.
Somebody said, was there major mess ups during the live recording that you had to fix post-production?
Should I tell them?
Of course not. Of course not.
No, everybody played everything perfectly and just nailed it. So, I mean,
yes,
that's what happens when you just work with the most incredible people.
No, it's really cool. Like one of the things that came to mind was the beginning of Everbright. So the take that we want, like, because that's the other thing with the live album, the way we did it. We had 3 takes of Everbright, I think. One was like the first time we did it, so the congregate, like the people were in it, but they weren't like really in it because they're learning the song still.
Yep.
One of them had a major mess up at the end, and then the other one, which was our best take overall. I mean, it was so great. It's exactly what you hear on the album, except for the very beginning. The band didn't play. Like it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nobody played.
All right, let's try this again.
Guitars, just tracks. Just the tracks. That's it. And then they came in later, so we had to fix that. And obviously, we were able to pull pieces from other places and then overdub some things and fix it with tracks. But you wouldn't know. Now listen to it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think any other moments. I mean, there's always going to be some flubs and stuff like that. Adrenaline's pumping. Because that's the other thing is like, unless you're like a touring musician where you just do this night after night after night, you also have to keep in mind like people are on stage with mics and the spirit moving and exhortations happening and a program going off and 5,000 people yelling and jumping and dancing, and it's like it's so overwhelming that just to be able to play your instrument with any kind of forethought is impressive in itself. So there's always going to be those things where people sing off note or maybe forget a line or flub a guitar riff or whatever it is. So you have to go back and grab.
And sometimes, and I'll say on that, sometimes those are the most magical times, honestly. Like, for example, the take of Word Fulfilled that we ended up using live, we had to cut the tracks because Helena was at the beginning of it was exhorting and praying, and the prayer that you hear on there was what she really prayed. But she was really into that moment and she didn't sing. So then we had to cut the tracks. So we played that whole time with no tracks live.
Yeah.
But everything else that you hear is live. All I had to do later on is just bring the tracks back in. Like that was no big deal. But that was a really powerful moment. And I think sometimes those moments of like Christian alluded to what you're saying, how do you balance the worship environment with production? We made a decision earlier on that the conference moment was going to be about worship. Like our arrangements, we're thinking production, we're trying to think a few things, but overall, once we got into it, like it's not about an album, it's about the moment.
Yeah.
And so there were parts like that we ended up having to fix later, but it was worth it because the moment was more powerful than if we would have just used a take that was technically better. I don't think it would have had the same impact. So.
I think we got to all the questions, and I'm looking at the time. I think we're coming up on our hour. So I don't know if you guys had any final thoughts or questions or reflections.
I want to hear more from Darion.
I know, man. Darion's just been chilling.
What did you say, Chris? I'm sorry.
I want to hear more from you. I want to hear. You didn't know stuff about like all the.
Hey man, I was just able to just hang out with some cool guys.
Yeah.
No, I mean I played bass. Did some arranging, and made some good relationships. That was my role in the album. Real talk. I don't know. Like I think I had the easiest role out of like, you know, you guys are really carrying, a lot of the weight, So shout out to y'all.
All right, man.
Especially,
I told Darion this. I said if they gave out Grammys for bass parts on independent albums,
bro, they opening that envelope and they're saying Darion Duncan.
Yeah.
And the award goes to
No.
Darion Duncan.
Oh,
yes,
man.
Joel, and the power of the 4 was in full effect. If you want to know how to have immediate oil in your worship services, please just hang out on the 4. Just it doesn't matter. Just make sure by the end of the song you arrive at the 4. That's where you need to be.
Yeah.
Oh, that was like the joke of the whole conference. Yeah, so guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Jorel, Chris, Darion, appreciate y'all. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for taking time out. Darion ran straight home from rehearsal. I was actually on his Insta live feed watching him rehearse, and then he jumped in the car like trying to make it here to do this. So thank you for that. And yeah, so we'll catch up with you guys again. Thank you for supporting Every Nation Music. Thank you for listening to and singing with the album. We just believe that God is going to continue to do great things in the future, and really through your church. What a lot of I think if I can make a final thought, one of the things that I think gets lost sometimes when you listen to recordings and projects and all this stuff is that the whole genesis of what we're doing and really the representation of this project is the community that starts with the local church. So if you're out there, take a shot at songwriting. If you have some songs in your back pocket that you've been scared to bring before your small group or prayer group or services, there's something special about hearing what God is doing in your context and not always importing something from somebody else's. So we want to continue to encourage one another to write and to pursue God in our local churches creatively. And so, again, thank y'all for hanging out with us. And we'll see y'all again. Gentlemen, good night.
Night. Thank you, guys. We're just hanging up now.